perfectly in sync. It's like Pacific Rim, you know?
Yeah, we're not drifting well enough.
That's what it's called, drifting. And the fact that you knew that, Neil...
That was a cool movie!
Yes, it was a cool movie. Very high concept. That's like that definition of a high concept movie. It's
also...
like, here's a...
No, keep going.
Here's a movie about fighting giant monsters with giant robots. There's a plot, but don't worry about it.
Yep. So the other thing is, I just like anything that involves drifting, so... You know, that's why Tokyo
fair.
Drift is my favorite.
Crazy Taxi.
Fast and the Furious movie. Yeah, Crazy Taxi, got lots of drifting in there. Anything with the word drift, I'm going to remember exactly what it's referring to.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna have to remember that and challenge you.
Oh, don't do that. I'm going to fail. My brain is bad.
Well... Hopefully it's good enough to play some video games. There's our segue. I did it.
It is. And hello, video games. Video games, hello. That's
oh my god. You had one job.
I fucked it up. Video games, hello, everybody.
Video games, hello.
And welcome to the Audio Games Podcast. I'm Neil.
And I'm Matt.
And it's been a couple weeks. It's October now. I'm playing scary games. And, you know.
Yeah. The real scary game, Neil, is getting the text message alert from your local government saying there's a red flag warning starting Thursday.
Oh, God. Is that a heat warning for you? Is that what red flag is?
It's a heat warning.
Days?
Well, I mean, it's usually when they do red flag, what they're stating is that it's a higher fire warning.
Ah, right. Fire warning. That's what it is. Ugh, crap.
Yeah, I mean, the great thing about it is, well, I mean, it's not really a great thing, but the silver lining, I suppose, is that because fires have been so bad over the past, decade, there's just a very heightened sense of awareness, a heightened budget for fire departments. So I'm not going to worry too much about it, but man, really not looking forward to that.
Other than 2020, when I first moved out here to Portland, because there are still fires around here too, just not like near the city, but we'll get the smoke in. But in 2020, there was like 3 or 4 days where the air quality was wildly bad, and it was a good thing we were all masking anyway. But walking out that door, my front door on those days, was not that dissimilar from the look of Silent Hill, one might say.
Yeah. No, I mean, neither of us played Silent Hill 2, but yeah, that was a pretty good segue, sure.
Thank you. That did come out, though, and people are saying really good stuff about it, which is maybe surprising, given Bloober Team's track record and the reverence, I'm going to say, for Silent Hill 2.
Yeah, I mean, reverence, I think, is the wrong word. I think that there is a cult for Silent Hill.
Is that what you call it?
A Silent Hill cult, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
But they kind of like the shittiness of it, right? And I get that.
Okay. I feel like there's a lot more than just the shittiness they like, but...
Okay, no, let me elaborate.
Okay.
We, as humans, like to establish patterns and see things that we believe are there because we are justifying what we're consuming at the time, right?
Sure.
Silent Hill 2 was an amazing looking game for PlayStation 2. Like, it was ahead of the curve in terms of, like, mastering that hardware. But when I say the shittiness of it, I mean, like, the voice acting was certainly early video games voice acting. And a lot of the fans justify that by attributing characteristics to the characters that justify the bad voice acting. Like, I don't think that there was an inspired cast and a like very astringent, strict voice director for that game, not the original.
Sure,
but
sure.
Because that attribution happened, Bloober Team, I guess, decided to run with it and like be like, okay, well, it needs to be a weird stinted kind of thing because of the disassociation that fans have attributed to the character that, there probably was some, but it wasn't intentional that they kind of nailed it. It was just a happy coincidence that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just a griminess to it. I remember like one of the people that I respect very much and who was a very big fan of Silent Hill 2 was saying that, like, they were worried that they were going to make the main character too handsome. And if you actually watch the trailer versus like the opening cutscene for the released game, they changed some stuff. I think they really did want to react to the things that people were saying, and it's very much a Sonic movie situation, right? Except kind of inversed.
Okay.
Whereas like ugly Sonic became normal Sonic, and attractive Harry, I believe his name is, right? Harry Mason.
I thought that was the first game. Is it
that's
not
the first
James in the second one?
Yeah, James. Is
Something?
it James?
Maybe I have him reversed. I might have him reversed.
No,
I thought Harry was
definitely
Silent Hill 1.
Harry was definitely Silent Hill 1, but I don't remember the name of the second game. Clearly, I'm not a humongous Silent Hill fan. Probably because it frightens the shit out of me.
Sure.
Resident Evil was never that daunting for me. But I mean, I don't know if we're spending too much time talking about this because, like, again, it's not a game that I've played. But it is October. It is an appropriate time to talk about scary games. Silent Hill was one of the games that I never approached because I read about it in a magazine. And the sensationalism of video games publishing at the time, they were very much like hyping up just how scary it was. And the accompanying screenshots certainly didn't pull any punches. And I was like, that's something I'm not going to play. That immediately I was like, yeah, I'm already developing, like, and there's the irony in it. Like, I was developing a fear of what I didn't know about the game. And, the great thing about the horror style of the Silent Hill games is kind of about the unknown, right? Like, the fog is like a very prevalent theme across all of the Silent Hill games. And it's just the idea of, like, not knowing.
Yeah.
I mean, do you know the plot of Silent Hill 2, Neil?
Oh, yeah. I've seen more than one playthrough of it in my life. The more recent one that I watched was a lot better because rather than being a blind playthrough, it was blind for one person and there was another person who's like very invested in Silent Hill in general.
I see.
So I got to like hear a little bit more about a lot of what was going on in those games, why people like them, that kind of stuff. And having a better appreciation for how they are telling a horror story, which, frankly, I think Resident Evil in general are better games. I do see why Silent Hill is more beloved by some group of people. The way they actually do narrative in, especially Silent Hill 2 is actually very good at it. The way they are doing the narrative and like what they are trying to explore with it is a lot more interesting from the horror side of things than basically anything Resident Evil tends to do. But those Resident Evil games play so much fucking better.
Yeah, I mean, did you play Resident Evil 1 through 3 like before the remake?
I played 1 and 2 on like original hardware back in the day, and then I did that first Resident Evil 1 remake. The like GameCube one where it was still mostly the same game but like improved.
Yeah.
And I played the 2 remake, the new 2 remake. But yeah. I never actually played any version of 3.
I think that one thing that Silent Hill fans are going to start agreeing with Resident Evil fans about is that part of the horror of those games came from the way that the characters controlled, right? As of late, Resident Evil has taken a far more action-oriented stance in terms of both the gunplay and, I guess, in the more recent entries or remakes, I guess, knife play. It is very much more action-oriented. And the Silent Hill 2 remake is also a lot more retooled for how combat works.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that makes it work in the remake is not necessarily the fact that it's more gamey, but like everything that surrounds it is very visceral. The way that the main character screams when he's stomping on something. It's like it's not just someone like finishing off an enemy. This is a guy who's like distraught. He's like frightened. You can feel that in the voice acting, and so I do want to give a lot of credit to the voice work that was done on it. So if you haven't seen anything of those games, I guess now's the month to be looking at them if you're interested in the horror genre. I think that when we talk about Resident Evil being the more action-oriented game of the two series, the idea of bringing more combat focus was something that was very unsettling for the fans of the classic games, and I mean, I tend to agree even after seeing the success of the remake.
Mm.
These are not supposed to be like people who know how to fight. These are people in a really weird, messed up situation that are struggling. So when you have characters who are like dodging and like wielding improvised weapons like they have done it before, I mean, maybe they have done it before to a certain degree. I'm not going to get into the plot beats here, but you know, it's a little dissonant, I guess, is what I want to say.
At a certain point, like, I looked it up. James Sunderland is not meant to be an action hero. He is meant to be kind of a, slightly out of shape everyman.
He's not really meant to be a hero. He's meant to be the main character.
That, too. He is definitely not a hero.
So, okay, so just to give a broad stroke on the Silent Hill series, Silent Hill is not a specific place. Silent Hill is a conceptual place for messed up people, for flawed people who are facing the realities of who they are. And that way, it's so much more of a psychological story than the things you get from Resident Evil, which is like, here's a virus that makes people into zombies.
Yeah,
it's like exactly what you would expect from a zombie story, whereas Silent Hill is like body horror symbology from people's messed up flaws.
Yeah, in general, Silent Hill is much more about the monsters are representing some facet of someone's trauma or mental instability, or even horrors that they feel guilt about. Like, it is manifesting monsters as representations of those rather than literal monsters.
Yeah, and that's kind of why when Pyramid Head got so popular, the creator of the Silent Hill series got really like jilted, because like Pyramid Head is representative of James's. I'm not going to get into what he's representative of, but he's representative of one of James's flaws, right? So when people are like,
pretty fucking big one too.
Yeah, the central one, we'll say. But because Pyramid Head, just in terms of design, became so popular and iconic for Silent Hill as a series, Konami was pushing again and again to put put Pyramid Head in every Silent Hill entry, which is why in Silent Hill 3, he kind of created a character that was like Pyramid Head, but also different. Mm-hmm. And it's been a sore point for him for a long time. And it was actually apparently a bit of a struggle getting his inclusion on the project for the remake, but he also seemed like he was pretty happy with the results. So, if everybody's happy, the fans are happy, creators happy. Extremely rare win from Konami, especially in this day and age.
Yeah, rare is putting it lightly for Konami's output these days. But because it's October, I'm also playing my own horror games on stream these days.
Wait, you're playing a video game?
I know, crazy.
Okay,
and I did play.
Hold on, that's a little weird.
I did play a horror game from this year that came out.
Oh my god!
I think it came out in like June. Kind of a weird time for a horror game to come out. Especially given a few other things about this game, which I'll get into in a moment. But I played Still Wakes the Deep, which is a little bit shorter and a little bit more in the vein of like a walk through a house of horrors rather than having all that much gameplay outside of navigating point A to point B. Luckily, it's not super long, so I didn't get like bored of what it was doing for me, but not exactly like a pinnacle of horror gaming, I will say. One of the strange things about it, though, it is a game that takes place very close to Christmas. It takes place in the middle of the ocean. A bunch of stuff that kind of just... It is... I just don't really understand the timing of it releasing. It's a horror game. You'd think, oh, get it like August, October, so that it's ready for... Or September, October, so it's ready for Halloween. No. Months and months earlier. What about near Christmas? Because it's set around Christmas time. Like, no, just middle of the summer. It's fucking weird.
Yeah, I don't know. I guess they weren't looking for a specific release window, and they just like, well, it's done, put it out.
Guess so. The game, though, takes place on a oil rig out in the middle of the ocean. It takes place, I think it's like the late 70s, maybe mid 70s, 1970s, that is. And it takes place kind of in the UK, I guess. I think most of the characters are meant to be Scottish. But that's also partly because I had heard before starting the game, hey, this was developed in like the original English is done by a bunch of people from the UK doing like Scots accents. And they did do a like American English dub that is apparently way worse,
what?
so I didn't play it that way. Yes, like...
Wait. Why?
Because I guess not enough Americans would understand what... how do they fucking say cannot? It's very funny with the subtitles because it's subbing it with, like, the way they speak. So if someone said, like, I cannot do that, they'd be saying, like, I cannot do, or something. They have a fucking accent. I can't do it. But seeing things spelled, like, Cannae for cannot, and it's like, yeah, that's fucking weird, I guess.
I don't understand what you're trying to say, Neil. Could you, like, try doing the accent one more time?
No, I really can't do a Scots accent. What I can tell you is the game is fairly good, I think, in the early parts of it, with kind of setting stuff up, starting to make the mystery happen, and starting to make you feel the space of this rig. That's actually maybe the thing it delivers the best on, as the game goes through the rig getting like more and more messed up, and you have to kind of backtrack through these areas, and every time you go through them, they are fucked up in a new, different way, but it's still an area you recognize. It does a really good job of making this rig feel like a place. I wish it did a better job of a lot of the scary parts. You know, a couple of chase scenes were fine, but the horror really wasn't there so much once I got past seeing, like, the first monster. And they don't really hide the monsters that much. They're you kind of are able to see them fairly early, and they're gross, they're disturbing, but they're not scary once you see it and have another half of the game to go through, basically.
I mean, I think maybe you're just used to that kind of horror. Maybe.
It's definitely a horror that is cribbing visually from things like The Thing. Slimy bodies getting bulbous and messed up. Not
body
looking
horror.
Human anymore. Yes,
Cronenberg.
Very much. Very Cronenberg body horror, exactly. And, yeah, maybe that stuff doesn't scare me that much. Maybe if they had leaned a little more into the Thing stuff and had some moments of, is somebody a monster here? That would be, is the monster already among us? That would have put a different kind of horror into the game. That would have been more exciting, but then it would have maybe been too much like The Thing, and that would have kind of soured it as well.
It would have been a little too much like Among Us.
Yeah, exactly. But again, I don't want to say there's like that this is a bad game. I had a perfectly fine time with it. It didn't overstay its welcome. A lot of the sound design is actually really good, and like really intimidating in certain areas with just how this rig sounds like it's falling apart around you. And the story goes where I expected it to by the halfway mark. But it does deliver pretty well, like we were saying, voice acting wise. I wasn't fully on board, but the later parts of the game actually have some pretty decent voice acting segments with people getting choked up on, and not from getting choked, but getting choked up from sadness, sorrow, and terror in ways that is actually delivered pretty well. So, I had a fun time with it.
Well, that's good.
Yeah.
I mean, do you feel like you got
games?
Well, yes, I have. I'll get into that in a little bit. But have you? Would you say it was worth the money? Like, how much did you pay for it?
I want to say it was like a $40 game.
Okay.
So it's not like a full price game. So I'm going to say yes, but also I would not be shocked if it went on sale for the holidays here. So now might be a great time to get it. If you can get it for 30 or something, I would say it's definitely worth it at 30.
We like to support our smaller developers here.
Mm-hmm. But what horror game have you been playing?
Oh man, I've been playing Onion Delivery. That
is is that just scary because it makes you cry when you cut onions? What are you fucking talking about?
No, Onion Delivery, man. It's one of the UFO 50 games.
Oh, of course. Okay.
And it is scary because it's so hard. Onion Delivery, I've been playing UFO 50 for the past couple of weeks now, and there are so many games. I haven't even dusted off all the carts. There's literally a menu where it shows you all the discs, and when you play it for the first time, it dusts it off. I'm looking at the 50 games. There's still maybe like a third I haven't even touched yet. Wow. But Onion Delivery is kind of a top-down perspective driving game with tank controls where you are on a very strict timer to go to specific locations on the map, and you have 3 lives, and if you are destroyed 3 times in one level where you have to make a certain number of deliveries, there's no continues. And each level introduces another horror that you have to deal with. I'm using the word horror here specifically because it's scary, Neil. The game is scary. Sometimes there's riots in the streets, and sometimes there's a UFO that comes and is attacking you while you're trying to make your deliveries. It's
Only
hard.
One, not 50 of them?
Well, I haven't gotten far enough because it's hard, but there might be more than one. I don't know. But it's a very difficult game. Reminiscent of a retro version of Crazy Taxi. There's no picking up the onions, of course. You're merely delivering them. But that's what that game is. It's it's a high concept game. We love high concept. But I've also been playing many of the other UFO 50 games. So let me give you just a little sampler here. I've been playing Quibble Race. Quibble Race is a gambling game where you gamble money on these little alien creatures called quibbles, but you can also pay extra money to try and do things that are seedy, like crippling one of them, like hiring a thug to cripple one of the contestants. You can also sponsor one of the quibbles, and if that quibble wins, you get bonus money, even if you didn't bet on them. You can train the ones that you're sponsoring, so you can slowly make them faster. But there's also conditional things, like there might be a meteor shower, or there's a lot of trash on the track for one day, and it kind of just throws a bunch of curveballs at you, so you can't 100% really know how things are ever going to play out. And the fun of that game is not just the general gameplay loop, but it's playing it with another person, because it is one of the multiplayer games. And despite the fact that UFO 50 has a typical maximum number of players of 2, Quibble Race is a hot seat game, so you can actually have more than 2 players. And when you have multiple people like trying to drug, cripple, and or poison the quibbles, there's sometimes strange outcomes where you will start the race, they will make it near the finish line, and then all three of them simultaneously die from poisoning. Because you're never sure who's doing what to what quibble and why.
Dang.
It's actually really fun.
Okay. Okay.
Played a lot of Waldorf's Journey. When I say a lot, I mean that's one of the shorter games, and I master cleared it on my second try. So Waldorf's Journey is basically Jump King, but it's an adventure game. So you basically are a walrus, and you have to golf-style shoot yourself at various angles to try and land on floating platforms. The game takes place in the dreamscape of a walrus who is secretly prophetic, and he is learning something from his ancestors that's important for the survival of his, I guess, tribe of walruses. Walrus? Walruses. I think it's walruses. And so you kind of throw yourself at specific angles, at specific power levels, but you can use certain power-ups to augment your flight, but there's also things that can happen like weather conditions. The reason I was able to super clear it is the super clear condition is called getting a cherry in a game, which is basically you can turn a game gold by completing it. There's a bonus objective that's usually very hard to do that turns the disc red, which is, I guess, a superior clear. The way you do it in Waldorf's Journey is finishing with 50 shells, which is the currency that you use to buy power-ups from the penguin princess that randomly appears on certain platforms. I opted not to use too many, and I kind of accidentally super cleared it. So I'm fond of that one because I'm good at it, as I am with most video games. So, no, I'm saying I'm fond of the video games I'm good at, not that I'm good at most video games. That's not what I'm saying.
Okay.
I played Pilot Quest. Pilot Quest is a spin-off of the Campanella series. Campanella is kind of the UFO soft flagship title that really put them on the map. And it's kind of like the Campanella is kind of like a lunar lander style game, but different. I don't know how else to explain that. Pilot Quest is the main character from that in an idle game. And when I say it's in an idle game, I mean that it uses the system clock to generate resources over time based on the things that you have in your little settlement. But you also use the things from your settlement to go out into the wild and find your ship parts so that you can repair the Campanella, because you're trying to leave the planet. And so I've gotten to the point where I have all my ship parts, and I'm just waiting for them to make enough moon ingots so I can create fuel to leave. Thankfully, I don't need to play it in order to generate the ingots, because I have a bunch of friends in my little town who are currently hard at work.
How can you possibly cherry clear that one?
There's a prestige system.
Okay. All right.
But the actual super clear for that, so I actually know the super clear for this because I had seen someone else playing it, and they already had the cherry disc, and people were asking in chat. But basically, after you get all of the parts for the ship, certain areas in the wild map, like the area that you go out into, will randomly generate like the super boss guy. You have to find him and beat him, and then he moves to another part of the map, and you have to find him and beat him there 6 times in a row. And the way that
Jesus, okay.
The reason that's hard is because in Pilot Quest there is no health, only time. And so your time is determined by how much meat you have, and you can have a maximum of like 20 meat, I think, maybe more if you have more storage upgrades. But when you go out, it converts your meat into time. And so if you have 20 meat, that's like 60 seconds for each meat. And if you get hit by an enemy, you lose like anywhere between 10 seconds to 60 seconds.
Jesus, okay.
So you have to play very carefully, very early on. And later on, when you have like a lot of meat, it becomes a little trivial, except for when you're dealing with like really big fights, like the super boss. So when you have a time limit to defeat this boss 6 times in a row without returning to the settlement, yeah, you kind of it's probably the hardest thing that you could possibly do in that game.
Okay.
I'm probably not going to do that.
Okay.
I've been playing Golfaria, not to be confused with Pin Golf. There's two golf games in UFO 50. Pin Golf is the 2D pinball golf game. Golfaria is the adventure exploration golf game. You play as a golf ball. You go around, you're trying to find the other golf balls who lived in your colony. You don't know what happened, but it's kind of like it's basically what I said. It's an adventure golfing game where you get power-ups and you unlock different access to different dungeons as you collect the power-ups. So, it's like Zelda but golf, I guess.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
If you really need like the textbook explanation of what that is. I played Rock On Island. So Rock On Island, there's an exclamation point after the word on. So it's Rock On exclamation point Island. It's a tower defense game. You play as a cave chief to a caveman tribe, and you basically collect meat and you pay off cavemen to defend the town or the settlement. Dinosaurs, I guess, became sentient and they want to drive you from the island. So they're going down the typical tower defense path, and you place the cavemen along the path to fight them off. It's very much tower defense. Not much more to say about that. It is good, though.
Okay.
And I'm also playing...
Oh, no, keep going.
I'm also playing Party House. It's a deck building game about you throwing a party. The deck is your Rolodex, because this game was like trying to be made in the 1980s. Like it is retroactively being explained as being made in the 80s. If you don't understand what I'm saying, go back and listen to the last episode where I better explain what UFO 50 is about. But anyway, historically the game is said to be made in like 85 or no, not 85, like 89 or 1990. So you have a Rolodex. There's no contact list. There's no internet. Your party guests are all in a Rolodex, and that's your deck. And the way it works is you have two separate currencies. You have popularity and you have cold hard cash. And so when it starts, you have the predetermined deck of like old friends, rich friends, and troublemakers. And so you click on your little door and a guest comes in, and it's a random one from your deck, and there's fail conditions and there's victory conditions. And the way that it works is when a guest comes in, they are scored. So like if you have the old friend come in, he's worth 1 popularity. If you have a rich friend come in, they're worth $1. And so when your house is full up or you preemptively end the party, everything gets scored. However, things like troublemakers, if you have too many of them, the cops come and shut down your party and you don't get anything scored. So you're trying to kind of balance out your deck, and then there's also many, many other characters that you can add using popularity. So let's say you have 6 popularity, and you can spend 4 of the popularity to add a driver to your Rolodex. And so the next time you hold a party, and you have like a certain amount of parties you can hold before you are considered to have lost the game, with a driver, it has an active ability of you get to pick someone from your Rolodex to immediately come to your party. Very powerful, but the downside is, of course, now you have the driver in your deck, and he doesn't score anything by himself. So it kind of takes up another space, and it's about kind of not overfilling your Rolodex so that you can draw the things that you need. And then ultimately, the victory condition is you want to throw a 4-star party. And the way you do that is there's certain like super characters towards the end game when characters cost like 20 to like 40 popularity that have a star. And so when they join the party, they add a star to it. And so you have to throw a party where you have at least 4 characters that contribute stars. And then you win the game. You win that scenario, I guess. There's actually a lot of strategy to it. I think it's very fun. It takes a while to get used to if you have no idea what you're doing getting into it. But once you realize what it is, it's like, this is actually a very interesting concept. And I saved the best for last. So this is currently my favorite game from UFO 50. Ooh. But I'm going to take a breath here if you have any questions.
Oh, I just wanted to know if there was any stinky cheese on this charcuterie board of games you've been talking about, or are they all still just excellent?
There are games that are very difficult.
Okay.
Rakshasa Caramel. Um, there's a top-down shooter that's really hard. Would I call them stinky cheese games? No, I would not call them stinky cheese games.
Okay.
I've enjoyed all the games from UFO 50 for what they are. Now, there's one game above all other games that I have enjoyed the most. I don't know if I can conclusively say that this is my favorite UFO 50 game, but the reason that I said, well, let's record at 9 instead of just being like, let's just record now, is because of this game. I didn't want to stop playing when I was playing. And that game is Mini and Max. Any idea what that one is?
All right.
I mean, how much do you know about UFO?
Either it's like you're playing two characters, one of them's tiny and one of them's big, or it's some kind of co-op game with like Minnie and Mickey Mouse analogs.
Wrong on both counts.
Okay, what is it?
Mini and Max is a 2D open world exploration game where you play as a little girl named Minnie, right?
Yeah.
That's the title character, and Max is her dog. Okay, you don't play as Max; he's merely present. But the story is you get locked in a closet because they don't want you interrupting or getting in the way of their party, and so this is where it becomes interesting because this is a kind of a side game to Party House.
Interesting.
Like this takes place canonically in the same house as Party House. And so while you're playing Party House, you can think of like, oh, Minnie and Max are like locked in that closet while I'm playing this. And I just like the connectivity of all these games, is what I'm saying. But the gameplay for Minnie and Max is that basically you hold down and you shrink. And it's very poorly explained. It's kind of just like, here's a thing you can do. Don't worry about it. Don't think about it too much. And so, like, the closet space is maybe like this 8x6 tile area, right?
Sure.
And so you start the game there, and you're just kind of walking around, and you can jump one tile because you're the little girl. But you can hold down on any of the tiles and shrink, and suddenly that tile is like its own level. So, like, there's two planters. There's, like, a bookshelf. So, like, as big, or I guess normal-sized Minnie, you walk to the far left of the room, you jump on the planter, and you shrink down. All of a sudden, you're in, like, this planter level, and there's, like, bugs and stuff. And it's like, oh, wow, there's, like, a very distinct sense of scale in this game, right? And then, you know, it's just nice to see, like, all of this modeled out as an actual level design, and it makes sense, and there's a lot of variety there. And, like, very early on, as long as you're, like, checking the right places, you find out that there's a power-up where you can shrink more. And so you're already shrunk, right? And so you're in, like, this little tiny borrower-style house that, like, another character who, I guess, learned how to shrink is in. And he's like, hey, you know, you can shrink even more. And you're like, oh, you can? And so you can, like, jump on his head, shrink down, and now you're on, like, the top of his head. And there's a whole level there, too.
Okay.
And this is true for every tile. And I thought that, like, there was a certain level of random generation involved. Because, like, okay, well, these levels, they have, you know, a certain logic to, like, how they're being made. But I tested it, and when you go to any specific tile, after shrinking twice, you're like, this is Ant-Man the game, basically. Now you're in, like, the quantum realm, and they are all just the same. You know, like, if you go to the one place, and you travel there the same way, and you look around, it's exactly as you saw it last time. So this is all, like, embedded. There might have been, like, some level of generation for actually making these.
Sure.
But like, you find power-ups in specific locations, right?
Sure. But I mean, you gotta shrink on your dog, right?
Yes, you do jump. You can jump on top of Max, and it's, in fact, one of the first things the game tries to encourage you to do, because it is an exploration game. When I say open world, it is a 2D open world game. because there's so much to explore.
Sure.
But after you learn how to double shrink, you're encouraged to go visit Max. Max early on is like, hey, come visit me every once in a while so that we can like check in and see how things are going. You go back after learning that, and he's like, man, I got this really bad flea problem. I guess they shrunk with me. And you're like, oh. And so you jump on him, and you shrink down, and there's like this little fight that you do with the fleas.
Mm-hmm.
And it makes him feel better. And then afterwards, he's like, oh, man, my senses feel so much better now. And he walks off the ceiling that he's sitting on top of, and he starts sniffing around. He's like, hey, I smell something down here. And my first instinct, because the game generally plays like Super Mario Bros. 2, or Doki Doki Panic, was like, oh, let me try like digging here or like picking up in this space to try and pick something up. And then I realized, oh. And so I shrank down, and there's this little town there. There's a little town full of NPCs. It's like, wow, there's so much in this game. There's so much in this game, Neil. Every time that I think that like it's kind of hit the wall of content that I will come to expect for a game of that style, it's like, no, there's more. And you know why? You know why there's more, Neil? Because I found an upgrade to the shrinking power-up after I got the second shrinking, and you can shrink down a third time.
Hell yeah. Quantum Realm, baby.
There's so much. And it is very, like, power-up centric, and I love games where you get cool power-ups.
That's fair. Me too.
You'd like Mini and Max. I hope you get a chance to play UFO 50 sometime soon.
It is on my list. I know I'm running out of time this year already, but it's on my list. Well, speaking of games where you get a bunch of cool power-ups.
Okay.
Have you gotten any cool power-ups and started to enjoy the new Zelda game any more than last time? You were a little mixed on it last time.
Well, I'm going to be honest, Neil, I don't remember exactly what I said about Echoes of Wisdom the last time we talked about it in this last episode.
Mm-hmm.
But what I will say is that I am starting to understand it a bit more. And this happened because I started to like follow story beats, like look at like the main missions that it's presenting you. And instinctively, because of the nature of the powers that Zelda is given, you kind of want to try and break things.
Sure.
And one of the enemies that I recently learned how to make an echo of is called a Crawltula, right? So that's the Skulltula, but it's called a Crawltula. And the reason it's called a Crawltula is because it literally just, when you make the echo, it just starts climbing in the direction that you made the echo. So,
okay.
Like if you cast it towards a wall, it starts climbing the wall. And the reason like this is broken is because you also have the ability to tether yourself to basically anything that moves. And if you reverse it, then you start following the thing rather than having it follow you. Which basically meant I could climb any surface. Like stamina, not needed. Jumping height, any sort of thing like that, not needed. And when I started doing this, I started to realize how the game actually gates you. Like, obviously, they don't want you to just, like, get to, like, end game areas or see things that you're not supposed to. And it doesn't gate you in a typical way of, like, your little mascot character popping up and be like, hey, we should maybe not go this way, or this place is too dangerous, let's turn back. They don't do that. At least in the area that I've been exploring.
Mm-hmm.
Instead, they're just extremely discreet about the ways they block things off. Like, there's just, like, no way that you're gonna get in there. And this is usually, in the case, is, like, having something that will instantly kill you, sitting in a very narrow space, having an NPC standing in a doorway so that you literally cannot get in no matter what you do.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff like that. And I respect it, because they do create the world in a way where they want you to be able to go pretty much anywhere you want to. And that's what I've been doing. I've been wandering around a lot. And it was only the past couple of days that I was like, okay, well, let me actually like follow the actual story here. And I realized how much it's inspired by Link to the Past. Now, the general like spacing of the map, like the actual areas and like how they relate to one another, is very Tears of the Kingdom, very Breath of the Wild, in the sense that, like, you know, the volcano is in this space, the desert's over here, the ocean is in this direction, and it kind of mirrors that, but so much of the visual design is taken straight from Link to the Past, and I'm saying stuff like the Eastern Palace, the Eastern Palace in Link to the Past, the Desert Palace in Link to the Past, like, it's the same exact design in terms of, like, the exterior, and it makes me wonder, like, what's actually going on here? Like, I know that they've gotten a little more open about, like, discussing timeline stuff, and there's other things that kind of make me go, like, this is a weird Zelda game for more reasons than it's just you play as Zelda and the gameplay is different. For one, there is a lore explanation for why Link doesn't talk. Like, it's wild.
I mean, I guess spoilers, but what is it?
Okay, so at least in the universe of Echoes of Wisdom, there, these rifts that open up, children get kidnapped. They specify children. They get kidnapped and brought into these rifts, and the ones that escape and manage to get back, they become mute. And you actually see this in some other characters who you try and talk to, and they just don't say anything to you. And apparently this happened to Link.
Like the implication being before whatever happened before this game, or because of this game?
Well, the journal that you find this all written in, it kind of, like, gives you the rundown on, like, who Link is. Because the other weird thing about this game is that Zelda and the King of Hyrule and a lot of other key characters don't really know who Link is. He's just kind of like this vigilante who's been going around trying to rescue people.
Wild.
Like, you see the little trailer where, like, he shows up and he, like, shoots the barrier that Zelda's in with an arrow before he sinks into the darkness.
Like, beginning of the game, yeah.
Zelda is looking at Link and being like, who the fuck is this guy? Like, no idea who this guy is. But, you know, that it's a very different take. And obviously, the Zelda games are kind of like their own things in most cases. I mean, there's a few direct sequels and, you know, a smattering of connectivity between different games, but generally it's a very Final Fantasy situation where there's a lot of motifs that are, and I mean, I don't even want to say, like, motifs. Like, clearly they, like, copy paste characters and change them in this way and that way, but they're different games. They're taking place in different continuities.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I'm not saying that the reason Link doesn't talk in every Zelda game is because of what happens in Echoes of Wisdom, but if there are games that follow Echoes of Wisdom in that timeline, then that does explain why Link is silent in those games. And that's weird, because again, Zelda has no idea who Link is at the beginning of this game, implying that this is, like, the beginning of a timeline. What timeline? I don't know, but it's weird. Back to talking about the gameplay.
Sure.
I like and hate the way that it works, because what I will say is I think a lot about every encounter that I have in this game. You know, I can't just run in, do the thing I've done in every other Zelda game where I just swing the sword, block here, you know, maybe shoot a couple of arrows, and then move on. I can't do that. The downside to that is there's so much menuing, Neil. Like, I'm not even that deep in the game, and I'm having to scroll through so many things to find the things that I want. And yeah, there are sorting options, but, like, you want to do different things in different situations, and if you just sort by the most recently used, then you're basically discouraging yourself from being creative.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that's kind of what's happened, where, like, I have the Lizalfos, as, like, my most used summon, because he attacks so immediately after you summon him. Like, you summon him, and the frame that he lands, he's attacking. And, like, I like the speed of that. I'm gonna use that. And so, like, I summon him, he attacks, and so after you summon a creature, they kind of do their action, and they kind of idle for a little bit, and then their AI kicks in. So rather than even let the AI do anything, I summon him, he attacks, then I immediately summon him again and he attacks. And there's no like limit to the number of times you resummon something. There's just a limit to the number of things you can summon at the same time. So
Right.
I've basically turned the Lizalfos, whatever the pronunciation into my sword.
That makes sense.
And is that what they wanted from this game? I don't think so. I don't think that's the vision they had for Echoes of Wisdom, but it sure is what I'm doing.
Yeah, their vision was make a water cube and then drag a thing into it.
It's weird the amount of times I've been like, wow, this is a lot of combat that they're making me do. because you would expect like this game to have less of that, right?
Sure. Yeah, you'd expect this to be a little more puzzle based.
And don't get me wrong, there is a lot of like thinkiness behind even the combat, but not the way I'm doing it. I'm just summoning a Lizalfos. I'm enjoying it more though. I am enjoying it more than I was last time I talked about it.
I'm glad to hear that. You definitely seemed a little mixed the first time because you were like, it's very cool, but all I do is trampoline and turn into Link sometimes because that seems better.
Yeah.
So
well,
I'm glad it
Link.
seems like the game has turned a leaf or a page or whatever to help you understand a little more of what it's doing, and I'm glad that is enjoyable.
Yeah, great soundtrack, a lot of charm, a lot of creativity and freedom in what you do. It's hard to have implicit design when you do that, though. So I mean, I'm gonna be using a lot of spiders to crawl up walls. I'm gonna be using a lot of lizard men to stab, and I don't see that changing unless I find a faster spider or a stabbier lizard.
Well, did Nintendo perhaps include a like alarm clock that you can summon a bunch of, perhaps?
I mean, you can summon a Reed Dad and it screams, so it's kind of like that.
That's close, but not as close as Nintendo and their new product, the Alarmo. Way more interesting than a Switch 2, I guess, huh?
I just want to stop you and say that segue was really bad. you really, there's so many other ways you could have done that.
Hey, you know, it's all Nintendo. It's all Nintendo all the way down.
And you went the way of like, can you summon a clock?
I did.
Okay.
I did it.
There was no mystery to where you were going with that. Yeah, Alarmo. I have feelings about the choice to release Alarmo in this period, and I think that it's intentional, if I'm being honest. I don't think that Nintendo's trying to troll the people waiting for the successor to the Nintendo Switch, but I do think that they have a captive audience right now, right?
Sure.
Everybody is like eyes peeled, waiting for something to pop up in Nintendo's channel, to wait for that next piece of news about Nintendo to drop. And because of that, way more people know about Alarmo than probably should, if I'm being honest.
That's fair. I haven't watched the like actual announcement, but I have seen some people talking about how bad it is. Apparently it doesn't really work if there's more than one person in the bed.
Well, I mean, if you're a big Nintendo fan who would go as far to buy the Nintendo alarm clock, you probably only have one person in your bed.
Wow. Rude.
Sorry. I'm just saying.
Look, I'm not buying an Alarmo.
I'm a Nintendo fan, alright? I like Nintendo games. I'm not gonna buy the alarm clock. The literal cartoon-looking bright red alarm clock that says Wahoo, the Bing Bing Wahoo man, wake you up in the morning. No. Can you imagine being someone who is sleeping with another person and like you are like cuddling in bed and it's the weekend and you forgot to turn off your alarmo and all of a sudden like you're spooning, it's very intimate, and all of a sudden the fucking theme from Mario Odyssey starts playing. No, I don't want that in my life.
Look, every time I have snuggled with somebody, I whisper Bing Bing Wahoo into their ear, okay?
Well, I can attest to that. That's why I bring it up specifically. But I'm just saying, wouldn't work for me.
Okay.
If you like the idea of Nintendo tracking your body movements while you sleep, then this might be the dystopian object of your desire.
Okay. That's fair. Yeah, I'm not interested in it either. Apparently it's really expensive, and I just... I know wasn't always a video game company, but what the fuck? What the fuck?
I also hate their naming convention. You can't just slap O on the end of something to make it cute. Right?
Labo, Alarmo.
Labo, Amiibo, Alarmo, Mario. Can't just do that.
Yeah, it sucks.
I mean, at least it's not new alarm, but new alarm bros.
Yeah,
or alarm you.
I look forward to the new Alarmo in a few years.
Yeah, new Alarmo you. Yeah, it's dumb. But it's also genius because, again, everybody looking at Nintendo right now being like, where Switch 2?
Sure.
And they're like, well, it's basically the same idea as like them having their hands behind their back and being like, all right, guess which hand? And you're like, left. And they're like, here's what you get. And it's a fucking alarm clock.
Yeah, everybody's looking for hardware news. I guess technically this is hardware.
Yeah. Technically.
Oh boy. Okay. But I know there's some other news you wanted to talk about that's maybe a little less just fucking what the hell Nintendo.
Yeah, it's more like what the hell Game Freak. Did you hear about any of this stuff?
I heard that there was a giant leak involving a lot of Pokemon stuff. That's all I really heard about it.
Mm-hmm. A lot of Pokemon stuff.
Yeah. So tell me a little bit.
Basically, all of the dark secrets behind Pokemon and their design kind of just spilled out onto the internet in a big sticky mess. And the reason that it's so scandalous is not because it leaked. It's not because they had a major game build in development end up playable on PC with the right kind of hardware. No, it's because of the lore that was written for certain Pokemon. Weirdly, like, high drama, lots of interspecies stuff. And this is not something that's been new to Pokemon. Like in the original Pokemon Red, Pokemon Blue, Mr. Fuji, like when you meet Mr. Fuji, you can check out some books on his shelf and they talk about a time where Pokemon coexisted with humans in a different way and like the idea of marrying a Pokemon. Apparently it's a lot more than that. And for some reason, it's weird because it seems like there's just a ton of fan fiction on Game Freak servers, but the implications, because it's there, these are things that they actually considered. Obviously, they didn't go public with it, but it doesn't really matter now.
So what you're telling me is the, like, Ash's mom and Mr. Mime thing is, like, real?
I wouldn't doubt that the people at Game Freak were like, we're not gonna say, but yeah, maybe that is a thing. And,
okay.
If there was ambiguity to the content of these stories that were leaked, then I would be like, not really news. But no, it's very... the word explicit is the wrong word to use, because it's not like they're being descriptive about how that works, but they're explicit in the sense that there's no question as to what's happening between these characters, right?
And their Pokemon.
Yes, when I say characters, I'm including Pokemon. I was trying to avoid saying that specifically, but yes, the thing that you said.
Wow, no,
There's one where it's like, here's a story about a woman and her half Typhlosion son. And it's like, what? What do you mean half Typhlosion? Well, that's just, it feels weird to say that.
I mean, I'm just thinking about the breadth of Pokemon now, and like, why? Just why?
Well, here's the problem, man. Like, how do you address this now? Like, that's out there. Game Freak, you gotta
Are we
answer for this
implying
now.
that, like, some of the Kangaskhan Khan babies are, like, half-human babies now?
No, that's not what we're implying. We're implying that most Kangaskhan babies are made from two Kangaskhan's. But we're also asserting that maybe there's a possibility that it's not that case some of the time. It's not like well, it's not fan fiction, it's just fiction.
I mean,
it's weird to say that it's just fiction.
There's no way Nintendo's going to say fucking anything about this. I doubt Game Freak will either. Other than we hate that people leaked our stuff, we're going to sue people or something if we can find out who did this. I expect them to say nothing about the contents.
I mean, when you do that, the silence is kind of damning, isn't it?
Did they ever say anything about, like, all the weird, like, Super Mario World concept stuff that leaked forever back?
I'm not entirely sure what you're referring to.
At some point there was that, like, giant Nintendo leak for a bunch of other stuff, and there were, like, here's what Yoshi originally looked like, and things like that, and I don't remember Nintendo saying anything other than just, like, it's illegal
was
to leak
the original
shit.
Design for Yoshi him riding Mario in a very different way?
No, but
so,
I'm just saying. I'm saying
like,
the
why would they need to acknowledge that? There's no need to acknowledge that because it's like not scandalous.
Sure, I don't think they're going to address it.
That looks like something they could have done.
I feel like them addressing it is going to be something where they're going like, if we say anything about the contents, we are acknowledging that contents and bringing more eyes to it. So I don't think that's what they're going to do. I think they're just going to say things like,
of course that's what they're going to do, but like what I'm saying is the fact that they won't acknowledge it is much evidence to the fact that it's real as them not acknowledging it.
I guess so. That's fucking wild, but, you know, I guess kinky people work in video games. That's... Sure.
Do you think the people behind Pal World hacked Game Freak to get this stuff? And they're like, hey, look at this.
I don't know how that would help their case.
It's a smoke screen, Neil.
No.
You can't mention Pokemon right now.
I do not think
without it also
from
being
the Pal
about
World,
interspecies relations.
I do not think someone from the Pal World company said, oh, let's hack into Nintendo servers because we can find something more damning than...
Whoa. It's not Nintendo, it's Game Freak. Okay.
I don't think they hacked into Game Freak servers to be like, if we can find some, like, sex shit, it'll make them stop thinking about us using guns in their Pokemon game. Like, that, it's not...
You know, I just realized Game Freak is probably a pretty apt name for the company at this point.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, at least you get what's on the label. Ay.
Ay, indeed. I can't believe that shit.
Yeah, well,
like now I have to look
either.
this shit up, and I'm gonna feel like a freak for doing it.
You're gonna feel like a game freak.
I'm shaking my head. No one can see it, but I'm shaking. All right.
Well, I don't know if we got time to talk about anything else.
Okay, that's fair.
I think that hits most of the major beats.
We'll talk about some other things next time. We got things to talk. I still have some other games to talk about. We still got some other news I'm sure we can hit if we need to. But I want to say one more time, everybody. Video games, hello. And this is goodbye.
And this is Video Games Goodbye.
Audio Games is hosted and produced by Matthew Lane and Neil Jimenez. Our theme music is Recharging by Gooset. If you'd like to reach out to us, please email us at audiogamespodcast@gmail.com.
Neil, my birthday. as in 2 days.
Fuck, is it? Oh god, it is middle of October.
Yep. I hate that. I hate that there's a red flag warning starting on my birthday.
That's
It's
pretty bad.
so iconic.
Are you, I was gonna say, are you doing anything? But I guess not because red flag warning. So
I didn't really have anything planned.
that's fair.
I am gonna go visit the parents the
Oh,
week after.
okay.
But
Happy
that's
birthday
it.
to you, not to your parents, but you know, you'll get to go. You'll
Well,
get to go gambling. Maybe that's fun.
I mean, what is life but one big gamble, Neil?
Ain't that the truth? Ain't that the truth?
That's why I like playing Quibble Race.
Describing Quibble Race, it really just makes me think of those fucking. Obviously, you have more input, but the silly like horse racing videos, but like the 3D ones where like everything is going fucking nuts.
Yeah, like the Japanese horse racing
those ones.
CG videos.
I just think about those.
It's basically
like,
that.
Fuck yeah, those are great.
Especially that with like little funny alien guys that you can cripple. All right.
All right.
I don't think I have anything else to say. Oh, wait, no. Did you stop?
No, not yet.
Okay. I want to congratulate my girlfriend on her promotion.
Hey, congratulations.
I know you listened to this, and I want to make sure I congratulate you.
I also congratulate you. It's the first time I've heard of it, but hell yeah, promotion.
Yay, okay, bye.